Something strange happens to your social circle after 30. And the strange part isn't that friendships explode in some dramatic fallout where everybody storms out of the group chat and blocks each other like it's a ranked lobby after a bad loss. What actually happens is much more quieter than that, which somehow makes it even weirder. One day you're scrolling through your group chat that used to sound like a Vegas casino at 2 in the morning. Notifications would be going off every 10 seconds, memes flying left and right, some people arguing about absolutely nothing. And then you realize the last message is from 8 months ago, and it just says, "Yo, we should hang out soon." Which is adult language for this chat is now a museum exhibit. Everyone is still technically in the group. Nobody left or got kicked. But the friendship activity clearly died back in February, filed for divorce, and nobody just finalized the paperwork yet. Every adult group chat eventually becomes a digital graveyard where nobody leaves because leaving feels rude. Nobody talks either because coordinating 6 adult schedules sounds harder than planning a wedding. And when that happens, people assume something went wrong. They assume adulthood ruined their friendship, everybody got busy, people drifted apart, got busy with lives. But if you zoom out and look at the patterns long enough, you start noticing something else. Your social circle didn't collapse. Life just slowly removed the convenience that was holding a lot of those friendships together. And once that convenience disappears, the only relationships left standing are the ones strong enough to survive without it. Which turns out to be a surprisingly small team. When you're younger, your social circle is mostly built on proximity, which is a polite way of saying a lot of your friendships exist because the same people happen to be trapped in the same building as you for several years. Whether that was school, coworkers, friends of friends, random people who showed up to the party once and are now permanently added to the roster. Every friend group has at least one person nobody remembers inviting, but yet they have been around so long that questioning it feels rude. Yeah, that's Greg.
Who invited Greg?
No idea, but he helped somebody move back in 2018, so he's legally on the team now. Friend groups when you're young basically function like solo queue matchmaking in League of Legends. Nobody understands how the team composition happened, half the people don't know each other, and somehow you're all locked into the same game for the next 4 years. And that system works surprisingly well for a while, because when you're young, time feels unlimited and energy feels automatic. You can waste an entire night doing absolutely nothing and still call it a good night because the only thing that you spent was time. At 20 years old, time feels like something you have infinite storage for. Then, adulthood quietly introduces a mechanic nobody warned you about. Which is, time starts costing resources. Work takes 8 hours, commuting takes another chunk, responsibilities appear like side quests that you'll never accept but somehow still have to get completed. And suddenly hanging out until 3 in the morning on a Tuesday stops feeling harmless. Now feels like signing a contract with tomorrow's suffering. You wake up the next day feeling like your skeleton has been replaced by wet cardboard, and you start realizing something uncomfortable. Your time isn't free anymore. And once time isn't free, the way you spend it changes everything. Something strange happens once you reach this stage of life. Hanging out with somebody stops being spontaneous and starts feeling like a coordinated raid. Schedules have to line up. People check their calendars. Someone says, "Well, I can't do this weekend, but maybe next Saturday?" At some point, making plans with friends starts sounding less and less like hanging out, and more like somebody trying to call Baron with 3 teammates still clearing waves. Once you hit 30, social plans feel like negotiating between people who are slightly tired. And once friendships require effort instead of proximity, something revealing begins to happen. A lot of relationships quietly stop existing. Nobody argues, announces anything. People just stop encountering each other. Which leads to a realization that feels a little too uncomfortable at first. A lot of friendships were never built to survive inconvenience. They were built to survive proximity. If you remove the classroom, the shared lunch table, the daily routine, suddenly these relationships don't have any structure holding them together. It's like realizing a plant survived for years because you accidentally watered it every day. Once that accident stops happening, the plant struggles. Not because anybody hates the plant, because the plant depended on convenience. But here's the part most people don't expect. When your social circle starts shrinking, the friendships that remain begin to feel a bit different. They become quieter, less chaotic, less consistent, but strangely stronger. Because the people who remain passed a test most friendships never had to take before. These are the friends who will drive 40 minutes just to grab dinner for an hour. The people who will go months without talking and somehow continue the conversation like time paused. The people who show up when life becomes inconvenient, and inconvenience turns out to be the real test of friendship. Anyone can be your friend when life is easy and everyone's lives is 5 minutes apart. That situation requires almost no loyalty. That's not friendship. That's just synchronized boredom. Real friendships reveal themselves when life becomes inconvenient, which is why adult friendships often look smaller but feel stronger. You stop having 15 casual friends, but the 3 or 4 people who stay around start feeling more like family. And interestingly enough, those friendships also become brutally honest. When you're younger, people are polite. When you're older, everyone is too tired to pretend. If you say something absolutely ridiculous, your friends don't nod politely. They look at you like you just tried to tower dive at level 2 with no minion wave. Like, bro, what the f are you doing? And somehow that honesty feels comforting. Around this point, most people have a realization that's slightly uncomfortable. You didn't lose as many friends as you thought you did. You lost acquaintances that proximity tricked your brain into labeling them as friends. When you're younger, the bar for friendship is unbelievably low. You can share one pizza with somebody and suddenly that person is in your life for the next 5 years. But once your time becomes limited, the standard quietly changes. Now hanging out means sacrificing one of the few evenings you have left that week. And your brain starts asking a question it never asked before. Is this person worth my last bit of energy tonight? Sometimes you stare at your phone deciding whether to go out while your brain starts doing ranked game mode calculations. Is this still winnable? Do I commit to this play? Or do I just FF15 and stay home? And honestly, some friendships were held together entirely by momentum. You ever run into someone you used to hang out with consistently and realize you have absolutely nothing to talk about anymore? You both remember being close, but neither of you remember what you used to talk about for 6 straight hours. The conversation starts buffering. Hey man, what's new?
Work?
Yeah, same. 30 seconds later, both of you realize that the friendship was basically the social equivalent of a duo queue. Remove the daily games, and suddenly you're just 2 players in the same lobby. But here's the part people misunderstand. A shrinking social circle isn't failure. It's filtering. When life stabilizes, shallow relationships stop working because chaos was the thing holding them together. Deep relationships don't rely on chaos. They rely on choice. Which is why adult friendships feel rare but extremely valuable. You start appreciating the people who actually stay in contact, the ones who check in, the ones who make up effort to meet, the ones who don't disappear the moment life becomes slightly inconvenient. At some point, the size of your social circle stops mattering. The quality starts mattering instead. Because 5 real friends are indefinitely more valuable than 15 people who are only there because proximity kept scheduling you together. Your friend group didn't disappear. Convenience disappeared. Most friends don't end with conflict. They end with logistics. Adulthood doesn't expose fake friends. It exposes weak connections. You don't lose friends after 30. You just lose that proximity. So yes, your social circle will probably shrink as you get older. Group chats go quiet. Plans happen less often. People slowly move into different directions of their life. At first, it can feel like loss. But if you look closer, something else is happening. The noise fades. The signal stays. The people who remain are the ones who choose to remain. Not because life forced you together, not because you live nearby, but because the connection actually mattered. When you're younger, your social life is crowded. When you're older, it becomes precise. And the people still standing there in the small circle are the ones who were never there by accident.
Maybe the real surprise was the friends we killed along the way.